El Toro is the best wooden coaster on the East Coast, and it's not even really close. El Toro is at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey, and it features one of the greatest elements in the world. Find out why it's so great in this review. El Toro is one of 4 intimate prefabricated wooden coasters, and I'm lucky to have it at my home park because this model is so rare, but it's so great. Prefabricated means that the track was actually cut off-site in Intamin's factory, and it was shipped to Great Adventure and put together like a big Lego set. The advantage to this is to have a smoother ride experience, and it is smoother than most wooden coasters I've ridden, but it does have a little bit of a rattle in some wheel seats. That's not that much of a bad thing, and it gives the ride character, but it can be a little bit too much if you're not experienced with coasters. El Toro in Spanish means the bull. Now, many people call it the Raging Bull, but that is actually incorrect. The name would probably be the Raging Bull because of how aggressive this ride is. For its crazy airtime and forces, it's a great ride overall. Tips for El Toro is to make sure not to ride it in a wheel seat because it can be a little rough. The wheel seats are the first row, the third row, the fourth row, the sixth row, the seventh row, the ninth row, and so on. The best row is row 17 for its best airtime and smooth ride experience. This is the row second to last because the last one can be a little shaky, and it can also be a little bit more weight because this row has an extended ride queue. However, if you like the views, the second to front row is actually one of the better rows. Not because of its airtime, even though it's a little stronger but less sustained in the front row. The front row is actually really good. I think the front row can be a contender for the best row, but I do prefer the second to last row for its wilder airtime and drop. El Toro's restraints are very good. They're pretty small, and they're pretty comfortable too. However, they do come with a seatbelt, but you can get away with them being very loose because the ride operators don't check your restraint very well, and they will definitely not staple you. El Toro's operations are supposed to be the fastest on any coaster, and it's not hard to see why. The operators will not check your restraints very thoroughly, which leads to great airtime room and really quick operations. The operators will not stack trains very often, and that's a very good thing. El Toro can get decent waits on lines, but don't worry, they'll move pretty fast. El Toro is one of the crowdedest coasters there, but it is well worth the wait because of how strong and great the ejected airtime is. You used to not be able to, but you now can bring your loose articles through the queue line, and at the end, you can put them in a free double-sided locker that is very helpful. Because if you're in a long El Toro line, or if El Toro breaks down while you're in the line, you can have your phone on you and watch El Toro Ryan's content while waiting for El Toro. El Toro is very problematic because it breaks down very often. I'm not told what this issue was, but it is pretty frequent, and expect El Toro to be closed a few times during your visit, but it will reopen pretty quickly. I've ridden El Toro many times in many conditions, in many seats. And El Toro, doesn't really matter where you sit or what time you go, it's always an amazing ride experience that everyone should try out. Toro's stats are more of a steel coaster. The length is 4,400 feet, the height is 181 feet, the drop is 176 feet, the speed is 70 miles an hour, and the vertical angle is 76 feet. However, El Toro is a little short, with the ride duration only being 1 minute and 42 seconds. I find it a little short, but it's still great. El Toro has a presence at Six Flags Great Adventure, even though this park is filled with very tall attractions, including King Ka, the world's tallest coaster. El Toro still looks massive because of its first 3 elements: the first drop, and the first Camelbacks, which are all over 100 feet, which is crazy to think because El Toro flies through the first two Camelbacks and most of its layout. However, at the end of the layout, it can get a little slow as shown here. The end of the layout is not very exciting, and I don't even think it should be part of the ride, but that's just me. Toro was quite an expensive coaster that came in at $28 million and $3 million more than King Dakar, which is crazy because even though King Dakar is about like 300 feet taller, El Toro is still $3 million more, which is crazy because it's wood and King Dakar is steel and very complex. That is how much it costs, and we have to thank Great Adventure for delivering us this masterpiece of a roller coaster. El Toro Station was actually used from a previous roller coaster, Viper, at Six Flags Great Adventure. Viper was not a good roller coaster, but El Toro is great. Now let's talk about the coaster's layout. This footage is actually slowed down, so I have more time to talk about it. Anyways, this first sends you off with a small dip, kind of, and a turn out of the station. Then it goes up this lift hill, which is actually a cable lift. You first enter the lift hill, and it's a regular lift hill. Then it just kind of kicks you, and you go a little faster up the lift hill. You get an okay view from El Toro, and you can see a lot of things though, but not on the good side of the park. Anyways, you can see Medusa, the runaway mine train, the lagoon thing, the log flume, the safari, and even the small part of Rolling Thunder that's still left. After the lift, as you ascend what you think is going to be a drop, but it's not. It's this 180-degree turn that gives you really good views of this part of Great Adventure, which is mostly just safari. And you can see top of the loop of Great American Scream Machine, which is cool. In the back row, you're probably still on the lift at this point because of how long the train is, but the train begins to build up speed and go down the drop. Now in the back row, or towards the back, you get violently whipped with crazy ejector down the drop. Front, you can get good ejector too, but it's not as crazy as the back. Then you go over this near miss part with the sports and go on some of the greatest hills of any ride. These hills, hold up, there's a picture here. Anyways, these hills do very strong and sustained ejector airtime, which is awesome, and it's really good in the back row. Next, you go up this turn, which kind of starts the middle of the ride, which this part is not very good. Then you get the roughest part of the ride, and you go back up, and then down again. These parts only give mild floater, which would be good, but it's not standout on El Toro. This hill is very long and drawn out, so it doesn't give much airtime. But that's okay, because then you have this really cool near-miss element while you're doing this bank turn, and then you have one of the greatest hills of the ride, the Rolling Thunder Hill. This ride is just like the first two, but it's a lot shorter. Then you go into these El Toro switchback elements that remind me of the ones in I-305. I have not ridden I-305, but I could imagine they're pretty similar. If you have ridden I-305, please leave a comment and see if they're similar or not, because I'd really like to know. Anyways, you go back up this hill, which doesn't give any airtime, and this one too. These last hills don't give any airtime, and they're one of the biggest weaknesses of the ride, is I don't think they should be included in the ride, because they're not having any purpose. That would make El Toro less likely to valley, which would be beneficial to the park, so then they don't have to front load the train with water dummies. Anyways, after the brakes, you do a turn into more brakes and then into the station. Fun fact, one time I actually got stuck here. I was stuck there for about 15 minutes, but it does not take away from the ride experience, even though it was in the hot sun. I got great views of the first drop and other things like King Dakar. I was in the second to last row when this happened, and I don't think it was a very big deal, but I was happy to get off because that was my second ride, and I could have gotten more, but I did not. Thank you to El Toro Ryan and Six Flags Great Adventure for posting this footage on El Toro. I took these pictures, but the video footage was from them, so thank you guys. In conclusion, El Toro is a world-class coaster that everybody should experience. It has 4 great standout ejector moments, like the first drop, the rolling Thunderhill, and especially the double camelbacks. This is a great coaster for ejector airtime, but nothing really else. It has strong moments of ejector airtime, but not too many of them. I like El Toro, but I think Wicked Cyclone is better. I give El Toro a 9.5 out of 10 for its crazy ejector airtime moments. And El Toro is my number 2 coaster, but I do find it a little bit overrated. Anyways, have a great day. Make sure to like and subscribe as this video took me a while. And goodbye.